The Port Podcast with Craig Bell Estabrooks. Welcome to the latest edition of the Port Podcast. We've got a very special guest today, Trevor Georgie, with the St. John Sea Dogs, who's doing many things outside of the Sea Dog these days that we're going to get into. But welcome, Trevor.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? You've got a very unique set of opportunities in life that brought you to St. John, New Brunswick a number of years ago.
Sure. I've worked in sports and entertainment for probably 15 years now, which is really crazy because it's gone by super, super fast. I started off at Maple Leaf Sports after I'd done an internship before that with the Florida Gators and with the Windsor Spitfires, and then ended up working at Wasserman, which is one of the world's largest sports agencies. Now they have a hockey division with McDavid and Matthews and all that. But back then when I was there, we had a golf division in Canada. So I worked on the golf portfolio for Team RBC, which was our biggest deal in Canada. And I knew Scott McCain, who owns the team. And when Wayne Long was going into politics, Scott had reached out and just said, would you be interested in coming to run the hockey team here in St. John? And it was a big question. I never thought I'd leave the GTA.
Right.
My wife's from Vancouver. She'd already gone from Vancouver to Toronto. And then it was like, do you want to go further east? Let's just keep going.
There is land out there.
Yeah, there's more out there.
Explain it to her, yeah.
100%. So she was totally game. She's like, look, I know in sports you could end up anywhere. And so Scott, it was funny because Scott is so clever. I'd come on before any of this, it was maybe September, it was Sea Dog's home opener. And we were just having, I think, coffee at his office in Toronto. And he said, do you want to do a boys trip to St. John, go watch home opener? I said, sure. So we came down. And then as I was here, he was like, I want to have you meet some of the team. And then it was like, I'm going to have you meet some, I think it was Mel Norton at the time. Like, I'll have you meet the mayor, okay. I'm going to have you meet, and then more and more went on. I'm like, I'm meeting a lot of people here for a weekend. I'm going to have you, why don't you see, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So then fast forward like a month and a half. And I remember coming back from the trip, my now wife was like, that's a bit odd, no? I said
It's more than just a little weekend away, yeah.
I was like, I don't think anything's odd about that. And she's like, no, it's definitely, there's like, he might be recruiting you for something. I'm like, oh, I don't know. No, that was just a boys trip, which is very normal. You meet everyone on the team and all the staff and everyone in the city. So fast forward a month and a half, and Wayne was now in politics, and he had just said, hey, would you be interested in this? And when we sat down, I really wasn't sure because of everything kind of going on with Wasserman. I knew that eventually they were looking to get into hockey. I thought that was really interesting, which is my real passion. He wanted, it was very clear. He wanted to get a naming rights deal, which we're like, yep, that's no problem. We can do that. But the real meat on the bone was he's like, I want to host a Memorial Cup and win a Memorial Cup. And for me, that was like, okay, this is interesting.
That's a challenge.
That's a challenge. I like this. Okay. And I think that was kind of the protein on the plate, so to speak, to go, okay, like, no, let's do this. And been here, we signed on for 3 years. So it was a 3-year deal. And now going in February, it'd be 10 years.
I was going to say it has to be a decade since I met you the first time.
100%. I will say something about Craig too. So, one of my first interactions with you was the most St. John experience ever, for so many levels. I don't know if you remember that. I was at St. John Airport, yes. And St. John Airport, notoriously at that time, and it's changed since, there's no cabs. I didn't know this. I did not know that in St. John you had to, plan very much ahead to have a taxi.
Uber was not a thing. Not a thing.
Uber, is not.
It was and is not a thing.
So I'm at St. John Airport. It's that late flight. It's got to be, 1 a.m. And I'm like, okay. Like I was coming back from probably a quick business trip, and I'm standing outside St. John Airport. Like, I'm going to have to hitchhike back to any place to hitchhike that'd be safe. Probably St. John.
Probably.
But I'm going to have to hitchhike back to uptown. And you and Emily were there. You guys pulled up. We were like, you guys were there. You're like, hey, like you could clearly saw that I was stranded. You're like, do you want to ride back to, and so anyways, I hopped in with, at that time, quasi strangers.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I was like, I'm like, no, these are nice people. Yeah. And we lived relatively close, right. And you brought me home. So I always, it's so funny when people be like, do you know Craig Estabrooks? Or they'll bring you up, or we'll kind of be in adjacent circles. Yeah. Obviously the accolades are incredible, everything you've done with the Port, but usually it starts with, he drove me home one night. He drove me home one night from the airport.
I have to be totally selfish here, because from the moment I met you, your background just lit up every interest I have outside of work. The golf in Canada piece, the Toronto Maple Leafs that we're going to get into. That is a love-hate affair with my viewing of hockey. But I just feel like you've done so many interesting things which led you to this point. And then once you get to St. John a decade ago, you alluded to it earlier, that big audacious goal that Scott had for you, you did it. But there was also a lot of highs, and you've had to do rebuilds through this as well, which can be, I'm sure, a little bit low when you've got to relieve a coach or you've got to make a big change. Tell us a little bit about your management style and how it's evolved over the last 10 years.
Sure. We often think of, we're sitting here on the highest tides in the world, and junior hockey is no different. Especially it's only fitting that the St. John Sea Dogs and the approach we take, the tide goes out, it's tough, and you can see the floor, and the tide comes in, and we raise banners, and it's a story of stark kind of contrasts and seasons. So I go back, I always go back to Scott. Scott's owned the team since 2005, 2011, 2012, 3 championships over those 2 seasons. 5 years later, 2017 championship. 5 years later, 2022 championship. No team in the CHL follows the junior hockey cycle as kind of strictly and meticulously as St. John Sea Dogs, which creates opportunities to win championships because we put our best foot forward, but also make some really hard seasons. You don't raise, I tell our team all the time, it would be great to be competitive every year. We don't raise banners for made the finals. You don't raise cups over your head for, finishing 500.
Right.
In some markets, they celebrate like they do, but that's not.
We both cheer for a team that celebrates winning out of the first round. So
I can say no comment on this podcast. No comment.
You can attribute that one to me.
To Craig. But so for us, it's really the great year. I think there's a leadership in hockey. Period. It's in the bad years, and it's okay. I'm okay with that. It's part of it. It's all management's fault. And in the good years, it's all the players' credit. And I think it should be that way, because what we're selling is the players, and you go through these ebbs and flows of it. And I remember when we, I was part of the team in 2017. We won the championship, lost in Windsor. The Memorial Cup was really tough. You learn a lot, and then you rebuild, and then it was hard in 2022 when we won. We had a group of 5 guys that had been here since day one. So when they were 16, we gave them bracelets that said, trust the process. It's going to be tough. It's going to be like this, but just trust that process. And they showed up at 16, and our top defenseman, William Villeneuve, Leaf prospect, led the league in the worst category of worst plus minus. He was minus 40, and he had mono and all that. Then fast forward to the Memorial Cup in 2022, he's laying in the trainer's room, shirtless, beat up, bruised. We're going into the finals, and he's laying there. And what does he have on? The Trust the Process bracelet. And I looked at him and I said, Villy, you still got it on. And he just looked back and he's like, Trev, I just keep trusting. I just keep trusting it.
That's full buy-in.
Full buy-in. But those guys were 16, 17, COVID cancels the playoffs, 18, the season's COVID, so it's shortened and it's a tournament and all this. And then 19, it's like, I go win the Memorial Cup. Well, they've had no playoff experience, and then we had to change the coach. And, it creates, there's so many moments throughout the year that create kind of challenges and have to be managed, and such a people business, as you know. So, it's the great times make the hard times kind of forgettable.
Well, I want to pick up on a little bit of that because, we've talked a lot on this podcast from a port standpoint. The major infrastructure that we put in place, we largely did that construction during the pandemic. And there was a lot of uncertainty whether or not we were going to be allowed to with the rules that were put in place. I mean, the moment that I remember is, do we issue a tender for what became the new berth, or do we wait a little bit? Inflation wasn't a thing that anyone was talking about back then. Thankfully, our board and senior leadership at the time in 2020 pursued the project, and we kind of got it in, before the big inflationary curve. Walk us through what was that like for you in 2020 and 2021, and then you have this extreme high coming out of it in 22. I mean, I was there at the final game to watch that. That was like a surreal St. John moment, winning that Memorial Cup on home ice.
Yeah, it was incredible. I remember when we won. I'll fast forward to kind of that week. I knew, so when we did the bid, we had to do two things, which I think people maybe don't realize. We had to beat Quebec City off the ice, and I say off the ice, in our bid to host a Memorial Cup that year. Now, if you've been to Quebec City, you know their building, like their practice facility is as good as TD Station. And it's not a knock on TD Station, it's just the reality of that facility. It's as big as that. Their actual facilities, we put some NHL rinks to shame. So we had a 400-page submission, and our chair was Mark Anthony Ashfield from Deloitte, and he was outstanding in that. But it was done by our team on the side of our desk. Like it was crazy to have to be 300 to 400-page submission, and then to go through a whole interview process and all that. So we had to beat Quebec, and no one thought we would. I believe we would the whole way through. But if you look at if anyone plays EA Sports like NHL, if you play in the Memorial Cup in that year of NHL, it's in Quebec City.
Oh, wow.
So, because they don't know at that time. So they create the game and they go, okay, like so that's how much no one believed that we would host.
Wow.
And then part of our pitch, we talked a lot about the port. We talked a lot about just being a port city and what that meant to the community. And, when you're hosting a Memorial Cup, you're not just hosting it at TD Station. You're actually hosting it. You're taking over the whole city. The city is yours. This port city is all yours. And that week, to stay kind of calm, I remember I listened to Spirits. It's a song kind of on repeat. And I remember showering and I'd have it on. My wife would be like, are you okay? Like what, is everything good? Is everything good? I remember I was a little bit superstitious. I remember she came down with an outfit on. I said, is that the same shirt you had on when we won the other night? And she's like, no, why? She went back in the house and changed the shirt and came back out. And kind of the last 20 minutes of that Memorial Cup, I remember just sipping on water bottles. I think TSN kept cutting to me, and at times, and I'm just drinking and water bottles the whole time, and counting down every minute, like, okay, 21-minute intervals. We just got to get to the end.
Wow.
And at the end, I remember seeing my mom on the ice, and I just... I gave her a hug. I started crying, and I just said it was so hard because you don't tell anyone it's hard. No. I keep everything really inside, and she knew, because moms know, like they can see it in you that this was hard.
You put everything
decisions you had to
this.
make. We had to change our coach, and I still have my office. I love it. I have when we won. From years before when we were rebuilding, there was like a Fire Georgie sign that we have, and I have it in my office. I love it. And then we had some of the guys sign it, like we were laughing at it. So I took some pictures with like the championship and the sign and stuff. And I think all that's great. Like
you gotta have those moments. Yeah.
And you want to work in a city where junior hockey matters. And it matters here in St. John. Imagine for yourself too. The port is, the major economic driver of this region. Imagine for yourself too. You want to, be the driver of something that big. Like, you don't want to be in one where it's forgotten. You want to be in one where it's...
No, I think a lot of people that may be curious about the positions that both you and I occupy. I really believe that most of the pressure is self-imposed. It's not from exterior. It's that you want to make a lasting impact and be really good at what you do, and then have that impact be much greater than even what you're putting into it. That the multiplier effect, and that's what the Sea Dogs, kind of the pride that it has in the community. I think when they won in 2022, coming out of the pandemic, and we're all just restarting. I remember being in TD Station, and that was probably the largest crowd I had been in since 2019. previously I'd been to, a dozen Bruce Springsteen concerts with 80,000 people in MetLife and thinking that this was normal. And then you you don't even leave your basement for a year and then come out. I just remember the pride. It was almost like the rebirth of St. John in 2022. That was a huge moment when they won.
100%. Did you get COVID during that period? Everyone got, I think everyone at TD Station.
I did. I think I think it was the one time I had a very mild case of COVID.
Yeah, we won on a Wednesday. Parade was Thursday, and our wedding weekend started Friday in St. Andrews. And I think between the Memorial Cup and then following into the wedding, I think everyone, like every single person had COVID. I think it was like COVID got out of the way in St. John. Everyone just got it, and they said, okay, like now we're back in business.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but was part of your parade the opening of this container village a bit?
It was.
You came down. It was just
the timing worked out beautifully.
Right, Ray Gracewood and team had. I don't even know if they had done a full launch.
No. I think they were just opening. Yeah, they were just opening. We did a bunch of free concerts there too. Like I don't remember what it was. It was a couple $100,000 we had put into free shows to kind of kick it off. Yeah. The timing couldn't have been better. It was outstanding. Right. Yeah, the timing couldn't have been better. It all kind of happened at once. It was, it was great.
So before we pivot, because you're doing a lot more, obviously the Sea Dogs keep you very busy, but you're doing a tremendous amount more as well. And I want to get into that. But before we turn the page on kind of that era of the Sea Dogs, walk us through a little bit about the impact coaching has, not just on the Sea Dogs, but your experience prior to coming here in sport in general. Because I think I'm a big believer there's a lot of parallels with coaching in sports, specifically really hands-on coaching in games like, North American football, European football, hockey, others where a coach can have a big impact. But talk us a little bit, tell our audience a little bit about what coaching means to you and how important it is.
It's a great question. I think, the idea of 1 + 1 = 3 is feasible when you have great coaches. And sometimes 1 + 1 = 1 when you don't have the right person in that chair. And I also think there's different, just like they say, like there's wartime leaders and there's different coaches for different times. Our coach right now, and Travis Crickard, is an excellent people person. He's a player's coach. Right. He really gets players and gets people and gets relationships. So he manages that very closely. And I think that's why he's so effective. He's effective for many different ways, but I think a big part of him is the relationship and understanding young players. When we had Gordy Dwyer at the time coaching with us during the World Cup season, he was that group needed, I think, someone to just drive them. We were a really skilled group, and he was really hard on those guys and pushed them. But then at some point, it just you push. And the group, because we had an early playoff exit, were so dejected. When we looked at all the different kind of potential coaches and styles, we're like, we need someone to build them back up. Like, now's the time for someone like that. And that's what Gardner was a great fit for us at that time. UNB legend, great motivator, big into like the team building, and could fire us up to do just about anything right now. And so has that ability to connect with people and to motivate. And at that time, we had looked at, I think, 5 coaches. All the others had NHL experience except for Gardner. But as we started narrowing it down, we're like, you know what? The group needs to be built back up. And, we're trying to win a tournament. We're not trying to win a season. Gardner's, exceptional in tournaments. Let's go for that. And that was the right person at the right time. I've learned, I'm sure like yourself with your team members, I learn from my coaches all the time. Every time I would speak with a coach, I come back, I'd reflect it, think about it. Like, you're always learning from your team members. And same thing with Travis. Every time we had lunch yesterday to recap the week, and every meeting, you're always learning from them. There's so much knowledge there, and they see, like any team member, they see things, they're in it day to day, they see things differently and more acutely than you might.
I'm so glad you walked our audience through that, because I think the parallels with leadership and running an organization are identical. You got to know what levers to pull internally. You got to know when to push partners, to embrace partners, to know when to, fight really hard for something or let it go because there's a greater prize at the end of the day. I think there's just so many parallels with leadership, coaching, your position, and what we're doing at the Port. I think it's really cool.
Can I throw a question back at you?
Absolutely.
So Jim Quinn and to you, coaching styles, If you're a coach, you're behind the bench. Like, what type of team do you think Jim would get the most out of, and what type of team do you think you'd get the most of if you were coaching a hockey team? If you guys were coaching a hockey team?
Yeah, that's a great question. Jim and I are both very passionate hockey fans. He's a major Montreal Canadiens fan, and I alluded to it earlier. I am a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Please don't hold that against me. I love them. I hope they win. I really want them to turn the page. I want to get into that about the Maple Leafs and leadership and what's needed there as well in a minute. But if you look at what Jim and I bring to the table, we're both on that personality scale. We have that motivational piece. So there are a lot of similarities, but style obviously is a little bit different. Jim comes from an era where he definitely motivated through demonstrated experience. So he would be able to call on his marine experience, as a young person working on the pilot boats, and really brought a lot of credibility to the role in an era where the Port of St. John wasn't on the map. So I got to work with him for 10 years and do that. So when I inherit the job in 2021 and it's on to me, I really embraced the greater impact of what all the partners are doing. And that's what we try to promote all the time, kind of the preferred partner port, and really not only just motivate the internal team, but try to motivate all the partners that we have got a greater goal here. And if we can pull this off, which we have in an early stage, like we're at the beginning of our journey, but if we can truly pull this off together as all the partners, so I'm talking about the shipping lines, the rail lines, the terminal operator, JD Irving, all these key groups that have come together and have now become very, very close from an operational standpoint. We can pull this off. Our city will never look the same again. We'll be back on the map like we were over 100 years ago. So it's a different kind of, we're both on the same coin of the motivation piece, but probably approach it in a little bit a different way.
May I ask another question?
Oh, please, I'm on the spot now. I love this.
When I think of coaches, and I think coaching staffs and teams, Travis has done a great job of adding folks around him that complement him. Maybe someone that's maybe more of a tactician. Or you think of different coaches, like Gardner, for instance. Like, it was important to him to have a real tactician with him. He's this motor. I don't know if is it public. Brent?
It's
we'll cut that out.
It's mostly
public. Okay. Can I ask a question anyways?
Absolutely.
You're adding Brent McGovern.
Yeah.
As a coaching hire, would that be someone that you think hey, that skill set really complements what I'm doing?
Absolutely. So Andy Dixon, who I've worked with for 14 years, and he's been at the Port 21, is retiring next January, and he's been our chief operating officer. I put him in that role after I became CEO because he is the most strategic, tactical, detail-oriented individual. There wouldn't be a lease in the last 2 decades that he didn't have his hands on. He has been so active in securing a lot of this business and forming the relationships. My relationship from him has gone from, mentor to peer to, being CEO and he's COO. But we've been a duo that, I think has been a lot of why we've had some success for the last 4 years. So with Andy retiring, he's going to be staying on as that kind of a strategic advisor, but it was trying to bring someone else in to fill that role that is really tactical. And what Brent offers is on the infrastructure and financing and, really maximizing all of our revenue streams so that we can pour it right back into the infrastructure and keep this growing asset going. Because that's our goal here. It's an infrastructure play as a Port Authority. Yeah. Excellent. So I'm gonna turn the tables back to you for a second, and I want to talk a little bit about your ventures outside of the Sea Dogs that you've been working on, because I think there's some really exciting things for the community in St. John that you've already done, like the country club and other things that you have envisioned for next year.
Sure. So Scott and his family have ambitions to grow in the sports entertainment space. So he's had such a great experience with the Sea Dogs. Certainly a junior hockey team is much more of a community investment. We don't say it proudly, but the Sea Dogs would lose, it probably costs about $1 million a year to operate a team at that level of quality in the market. So that's just what it is. And if you don't invest in the team, then you don't win championships. You don't get that community pride, and then you don't you need to invest in it. Especially now with the NCAA rule changes, it's really shifted everything. But there's ambitions to now look at, okay, what else can we do in the sports entertainment space to generate revenue, to have an impact, to improve our community, and look outside of just St. John as well. So we opened the Country Club on the Boardwalk, which is a Nashville-style bar. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good spot. We were never intended to be in the bar and restaurant business. There's so many great bars and restaurants in St. John, and many of them are partners of ours with the team. Our intention with that was looking kind of bigger picture of, and it's been great. It's been a fun venture and great. But our intention is how could we add more kind of entertainment to the waterfront? How do we contribute to the vibrancy? Already the waterfront has, certainly my 10 years here has completely transformed. I can only imagine in 10 years what this looks like. So we just want to play our part in what can we do to add some more life to the waterfront and be part of that. So we also have plans for kind of live entertainment and events down at the new boardwalk. How it's been redone. It's beautiful. There's still some steps to get there, but again, just want to. One of our biggest things is be good neighbors, and how can we do that? And I think by continuing to add to the vibrancy of the community, we've already done that with the hockey team. What else can we do down there? So we want to do, concerts and live shows, and just again, we just want to add and complement what's already here.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to have great partnerships in years to come between the Port and what you're doing across the board, not just the Sea Dogs, but in your entertainment space as well. So I want to end with one question, though. I did this to Rob Chambers from Americold. He's now the CEO of Americold for our audience. He was the president of the region when he was here, sitting on that very couch. Okay. He's a major Atlanta Falcons fan, and I did bring up the unfortunate Patriots Super Bowl to him. So I'm going to put you equally on the spot because this is a shared thing. We both, you're from the GTA, as you mentioned earlier. You and I have both bonded over the last decade as passionate Leafs fans. I'm curious your take on not just the recent. Let's go back, kind of multiple, decades. This team's obviously had extremely talented players. They have endless, resources with great ownership structure. Everything you read about the team is, it is a 5-star quality organization. Amazing coaches through the years: Pat Burns, Pat Quinn, Craig Berube right now, winning coaches across the board. What would be a couple of things you think from a leadership standpoint that would help them get over the bump? Because sometimes you hear that, if the market's not big enough, if the resources aren't there, they can't spend to the top of the cap, teams could struggle. The Toronto Maple Leafs don't have any of those obstacles, but clearly there's something that's an obstacle. So what are kind of some of the leadership tools if you were with them, you'd try to employ to get them over the hump?
Sure. I'll preface this with saying, first paid sports job was with Maple Leaf Sports. Wonderful people over there. I had my early on in my career, a mentor of mine was Richard Petty, who was their CEO, and I can tell you that everyone over there, and I haven't worked there in 15 years. They wake up thinking about how do we win a Stanley Cup. There's no question about that. I would also say Tree and Brad Tree-Living. When he was with the Calgary Flames, him and his team were outstanding with us. If you look at that Memorial Cup team in 2022, we had 3 Flames prospects, 2 of which started in the American Hockey League, and they sent down for the Memorial Cup. So Tree was absolutely outstanding, and so I have a lot of faith in him. I think Toronto should have a lot of faith in Brad. I can only speak. I don't know if from being inside their room, but I can only speak from our experiences. And what I've found over the years is you have to have players that are not just will do anything to win, but have won. Because until you have won, and I've had the fortune of being part of two championship teams. Until you've actually won, you don't really know what it takes to win. You don't actually know. I until we won in 2017, I'm so happy I got to experience that so early in my time here. I was like, oh, okay. You just take note of certain things and you're like, okay, that's what it takes. And you go into it, you go, well, of course, everyone wants to win. However, until you've actually done it, I think it's very hard, and it's unfair to expect someone knows.
Totally. I use the word all the time in business, and I think there's a parallel. It's resiliency. Because when bad things happen, even when you're on an upward trajectory and bad things happen, you do feel in the moment that the bad things happen, like, oh my, is this over? Is everything that we built, or is this opportunity that we think we're pursuing, has it ended? And if you don't have that resiliency and you kind of have that repetitive ability to overcome the obstacle that you're facing in the moment, you can go from brilliant to average quite quickly. And that's kind of what I see as a layman hockey observer on the team. There's brilliance in moments, but when obstacles get faced, there's not always that resilient tendency to bounce back quick enough.
Resilience is such an important. I mean, it's so important. Like everything, like winning is one of the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing. Everyone wants to win, but who's actually willing to do what it takes to win? We talk about that with Scott all the time. Every owner says, well, "I want to win a championship." Okay. Are you actually? Scott puts his money where his mouth is. Yep, we're going to have really hard years, and we're going to go all like. But most teams are like, I don't know if I want to. I don't want to sit through a season we've won 10 games.
Right.
But do you want to? Do you want to win 5 cups in 10 years? Then you kind of have to do that. And so not everyone's willing to. And I think that goes for players too. There's certain players that if they've won, they know what that is. We added at the trade deadline in 2022. We added. The goalie of Hertubis who had won the year before, and Sevigny, who became our captain, who had won the year before altogether. In 2017, we added guys with 3 guys who had Memorial Cup experience. And there's something for that. You can't just, you have to win. It's such a chicken and egg. You have to win to then know what it takes.
Know what it takes, I know.
But, and so I think your top guys have to have done that because it's easy for someone making $15 million a year to look and go, okay, thanks, $1 million a year, but I'll do my own thing.
Well, I'm going to make a prediction to end this. I'm still going to be, hopeful, eternally hopeful that the Maple Leafs will get over. I do really, these people. I observe these people, but I think Brad Treliving and Craig Berube and others, I think some of the players, Ostermatt, they're going to get over that hump at some point because they're talented. They clearly want this, and they'll acquire some of that talent that maybe gets them there over the next few years. So I'm going to be hopeful.
And if they're looking for management for any NHL team, I don't want you to leave the port. We would be devastated to lose you in St. John, but I can tell you that Craig Estabrooks knows line combinations at practice.
I do.
He knows the sock color changes. He knows every detail. Anytime we've talked Leafs or hockey, period, I'm always astonished. I'm like, I didn't know that. There's many times we're sitting there like, how do you know that? Like, but it's incredible. You're passionate about it, and I mean, obviously, like, you're committed. You're committed to it.
When I'm in, I'm in.
Seriously,
I'm in. I can't get out now.
Seriously,
too far gone. So.
Seriously, well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming on. This has been a wonderful. We've covered such a broad range of topics. I think our viewers will really enjoy this, and hopefully we can have you back on soon.
I would love that. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks so much, Trevor.